Good day, family. This is video number 3 in our series, The Tongue. So far, we've talked about how words are small but powerful and how our speech reveals what's happening in our hearts. Today, I want to sit with a statement from Scripture that is both simple and sobering. The reminder that our words carry the power of life and death. That's not dramatic language. That's biblical language, and it's revealing. In Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 21, you might remember, the Bible speaks about the tongue and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. And speaking of the words that come out of our mouths and what the tongue is able to produce. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. And that verse forces us to slow down. Not everything in life is life or death. But Scripture says our words are. They move things in one direction or the other. They either strengthen, heal, encourage, or they weaken, wound, and tear down. And Proverbs adds something important to it, even more important. We eat the fruit of what our words produce. In other words, what we speak doesn't just affect others, it eventually affects us. So we want to be careful as to how we use our words. Words don't just describe reality, they help shape it. When encouragement is spoken consistently, people grow. When criticism dominates, people shrink. And when truth is spoken with care, it brings clarity. When words are careless or harsh, it often brings confusion and fear. And that's why Scripture treats speech as directional. Words point lives somewhere. Let's go back to James again as we continue to stay with James in this series. James helps us to see how far words can reach. Consider with me James chapter 3 and verse 8. I'm sure we've been there already, but consider that with me again. James chapter 3 and verse 8, when he says that the tongue is unruly and full of deadly poison. That's strong language, but it's honest. Poison doesn't usually kill instantly. It spreads quietly. And careless words often do the same. They seep into relationships, trust, and confidence long after they've been spoken. There are times that we often miss things in our speech. Here's what we often miss. Many damaging words are not shouted. They're repeated. Sarcasm, dismissive comments, constant negativity. These don't always feel like life, but over time they drain life from people and from environments. And that is why Scripture doesn't just warn us about what we say, it warns us about what we consistently say. Here's Jesus again. Consider Jesus regarding words and accountability. Because Jesus adds another layer of seriousness in Matthew chapter 12 and verse 36. And here he says that people will give account for every idle word they speak. And I said people. I realize that's me, that's you, and that's whosoever will. The verse isn't meant to terrify us, but it's meant to sober us. Jesus is reminding us that words matter to God, even the ones we think are insignificant. Heaven is listening, and heaven listens more closely than we realize. Here's a core truth for you. What Scripture keeps pressing on us is this. Every word carries direction toward life or toward harm. There is no neutral setting on the tongue. Let's consider some choices we make daily. Let me highlight 3 daily choices Scripture places before us. Number 1, we choose whether our words will build up or tear down. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 29 tells us to speak what is good for building up, that it may give grace to those who hear. That's number 1. Number 2, we choose whether timely or reckless. Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 23. And there the wise man reminds us that a word spoken in due season is good. Daily thing number 3, we choose whether our words will reflect wisdom or impulsivity. Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 18 warns us that reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. These are choices, not accidents. Now, why does all of this matter? If words truly carry life and death, then speaking carelessly is not a small issue. It's a stewardship issue. God has entrusted you and I and all of humanity with speech, and Scripture calls us to use that gift wisely. Here's some application for you. Let me leave you with a few questions to reflect on this week. Question number 1, are my words more often producing life or draining it? Number 2, do people feel strengthened or diminished after I speak? And number 3, am I choosing my words intentionally or simply reacting in the moment? Those questions help us move from awareness to action, which is what we need to do, understand where we are and understand where we need to be. In the next video, we'll talk about why Scripture sometimes elevates silence as an act of spiritual strength, and how restraint can be just as powerful as speech. Because sometimes the most life-giving word is the one we choose not to say. And this is what it means to be formed to fight. Thank you so much for spending time with me.